there's a very huge impact in time, in money, in friction. People stop being owners, right? People stop owning their processes. There's a lot of the roofing companies, whenever it's the quiet season, they lose talent. Think like it lives in the owner's head, but it lived in everyone's head. Look at the monster that I built. It was a huge monster, and they would get lost.
Welcome to Inside EdgeOS. It's where we go behind the scene with the people who installing the operating system inside of your business that it starts to move your business forward so it stops depending on you for everything. And today I want to introduce you my guest. My guest has been already working inside of roofing company for a year before he even took this role. And he was in production running jobs, so he knew where every mess was buried. Then the storm stopped coming, the phones went quiet, and instead of waiting it out, he started writing the company down. So I would like to introduce you, John. Hey, welcome, John. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm good. Nice to see you here. I also would like to add that John found the entire production process that lived in one person's head, and he got the owner sales process out. And the first time he showed his work to Cole got you feedback that he never gave to any of operations manager in our company. So it's something really impressive about you. So please, John, could you introduce yourself, where you're from, what you're doing, some maybe interesting facts about you so people can understand a bit better. Who are you?
So I'm John, and I'm based in Brazil. I've been working with a roofing company that is based in Omaha for the last year. And the last year, I started working in productions with them. And now, last month, we moved the role to EdgeOS. So now I'm becoming a business operation manager. And well, I'm helping them get from everything from the business owner head, from my head as well, because I was in production. And we're putting everything on paper and organizing everything.
Okay, I believe it should be a bit easier because you already worked in this company, so you get used to all processes and you know owners. But how it was for you? I'm curious because how it changed when you start to have a role as operations manager, like day one, what you start doing, how was the plan for you, like operations manager inside of this company?
So it's funny because on one hand it was easier to change, having the experience in the company for a year prior gives you a lot of knowledge about it. So in this regard it's easier, but also I was doing already production. I started looking at the business with the bias of productions. I had to, before starting the role, I have to disassociate a bit from production and started to look at everything as an edge operations manager, right? So not anymore as the guy who would be running production and more of the whole business, so the bigger picture. So that was one big change, and it was a very interesting process about it. So we did a lot of changing the roles. So again, going from the micro to the macro, and I've learned a lot of new things that I previously didn't know about the business, and I combined that with the knowledge that I already had. So that has been going a great process.
Okay, but also before age, you worked in operations, and then you start working in our company, and then again operations, but already in age. So, what made you want to come back to this industry? Because you already had experience, so maybe you wanted to try something else, but still you're here and you're again operations manager.
So one part of my personal life in general is that I really like to know how things work. And, I always am sitting at my table like, oh, how does this work? And then I always try to, how can I improve it? And that's basically operations, and that's basically the operations manager role. So again, I did work before as also as another business operation manager in a different company. And that was a very eye-opening role, right? Very learning experience where, I did learn the hard truths and, did learn what's good, what's bad about it. And when I had the opportunity to come back and do it all again, but now, not only I would come back with more experience than what I had for my role, but also would be coming back with the whole experience that I have with the company that I'm working right now. That was just a match made in heaven for me. I think I could, tinker with everything, and also I was already more prepared than I was before to do it.
Yeah, definitely. Plus, you already know people, already understand everything. How does it work? Hey, so, but let's speak about what you're doing when you're not on your job. Like, for example, you're not working, you're free. How does your day look like? Where you go, what you start to do? I'm very curious.
So I'm a very homey person, and I think it's the working from home. It's shows this really well. Whenever I'm not working, I'm usually with my cats, with my girlfriend. We're doing things in the homes, either watching movies and spending time together. I do, I'm not very much into big sports. Mm, I like to stay at home. I also love playing games as well. So whenever I'm not working, I'm usually at my computer or with my girlfriend, my two little cats that they're running around being a menace. So yeah, all of those two things.
Yeah, I see. Maybe you have also some hobbies. For example, okay, you're a homey person, but maybe these hobbies it's like, I don't know, cleaning something or doing something by your hands, whatever. Like you stay at home and what you usually do on the weekends, like watching movies, for example, or
Mhm.
collect. Maybe you have collections.
I do have collections. I do. I do have a big Lego collection that I haven't updated in a while, so I think it's time to get some new Legos. But yeah, I do love collecting. I like creating things, so I like uh, I like putting getting things making things real, right? So drawing, of course, is one thing that I've always done in my life, but more recently I started trying to get my hands into woodworking. That's a really extraordinary thing, I think, from what I'm doing. But yeah, I started to get my hands into woodworking. I'm liking how I can, get just pieces of wood and just try to make something that's not wasn't there before. So this is my one new hobby that I have. But yeah.
But what did you made from the wood? For example, your last piece, what it was? Like some statues, some animals. I'm just curious. What was
No,
your idea to make it from wood?
I'm just starting out, so I've got the tools, and I haven't done a big piece yet. I haven't done furniture yet. I like making. I'm very interested in making furniture, so that's my goal. But right now, I'm gonna be happy just if I can make something happen. So I think that the basics should be starting with my workspace. A lot of the workers you see, they make their own workspace. So the benches and everything that they work with. And I think that's a good starting point that I'm aiming to be good enough to create those.
Wow, it's cool. Share with me after pictures of what you did. You can, by the way, share it in our culture. I think people would like to see like what part of our company, like what our employees making. I think it's
Mhm.
cool. Let's come back to company where you worked before. Now you're operations manager there because you already know people, already have connections. And I'm curious, what was the reaction of your colleagues when you start to be an operations manager and you start to map all processes, clarify roles, what people doing? Like, what was the reaction? They was maybe not very happy about that you show the truth to people and what is going on in company. So please share with us this experience.
So that was a pretty interesting reaction. I think a lot of the guys there, they are pretty good. They are really good at what they do, but we were not. I say we because I was there before as well. So we were not used to having metrics or actually writing down the processes. So you'd think like it lives in the owner's head, but it lived in everyone's head, like every single process. We would have uh something basic written down. Again, we were just like written in everyone's head. And so their reaction was they were surprised. They were like, okay, what am I going to start? What do I need to start doing now? Is it everything going to change? But they took it pretty well. I think that they quickly understand that we need this. right? So we need this to make the company go forward. And even, I got into some meetings, and especially because, again, working there a year prior really did help with this, because some of the processes I did myself. So whenever I was going to talk with people, oh, you got to do this, we need to do this, I already had done it. So I already had experience how that would impact me in my daily tasks and everything. So that was a much easier conversation. And that really allowed people to actually bring ideas and suggestions. So, there was last week I had one conversation about with one guy from the front desk about creating playbooks. And, playbooks, they are pretty big and intensive to make, but he was really on board, and he was like, oh, I can create a playbook for the warranties as well. Cause like he makes warranties, and sometimes he may, do one warranty now and then another one, like the same warranty 5 months later, and he already forgot the process. So he was really interested in, oh, I can create a playbook so then I can use it as a guide for myself. So I think being there for a year really did help turn these conversations much more productive, I think.
Okay, so plus minus, it was positive. Your colleagues didn't start to hate you so much for this.
Not that I know of, but yeah,
Now
it was
he's
very positive.
controlling everything. I just can imagine, sometimes it's crazy stories. But I'm glad in each we really have such a great communication with everyone. I'm
Mm.
really enjoying to speak to you guys, to Maria, with Cole, and yeah, health environment is the most important. Okay, if we start talking when you start mapping how works really moves through the company, where did you begin and what did you look at first? What was your first action? Because you already understand the company, how it's working inside, maybe you know that I need to go there and there to start because I
Mhm.
see problems in these industries, areas of the company.
So when we start doing the training for EdgeOS, one thing that we are trained to is to first look at the business, the bottlenecks, right? Because again, we believe that there's always going to be one big bottleneck, and we have to deal with it, and then we move to another. And looking at the current company that I was working with, the biggest bottleneck at the moment was lead acquisition. So again, the phone wasn't ringing, and I could have started with that, started mapping the lead acquisition process so we could have a better understanding. But I also personally believe that sometimes whenever we have a map, a model, it's much easier to do things. So what I ended up doing was obviously just working with creating, mapping out the production part of the business, because that was what I had intimate knowledge of. And at the end of the day, that really helped me, because whenever I started talking with the owner about it. I had something to show to him, like, hey, this is what a good workflow looks like. This is how workflows should be, how the mapping process is. And that made like all the other conversations much more simpler. So whenever we started mapping the lead acquisitions, that is the biggest bottleneck, we had no issues with it, because we understood this is a good workflow, and let's just replicate the good workflow model to, the lead acquisition process.
But also you mapped it once and then you needed to rebuild your workflow processes. What was wrong with the first option? Why it happened? And I can imagine start everything from zero again. Not the best part of the job, but still, what happening in this case?
The first one was by Cole's saying it was too epic. So
Okay,
basically,
wait. So curious, what is too epic? How it is?
so basically, again, I had intimate knowledge of how everything worked in the production side. So I mapped everything, and I've made a huge workflow. We could lack in detail, but I overdone in detail, because also I'm a visual learner as well. So I like seeing like the little bubbles. Okay, if something, I will map like from the smallest like inconvenience to the material orders that we find an inconvenience to the material orders. I would map that to the smallest thing to the biggest process, just the decisions that when we had to start everything. And at the end of the day, what I showed up with the first map that I did was too complex. it was too big and it was hard to follow. So the idea for mapping the business is that anyone could take a quick look at the map and see how the process works. So that went in the other way. So everyone would look at the map and they would be confused because there were too many bubbles, too many stopping points, too many decision points. So that's why we Cole said, that's too epic of a workflow. So I had to, when I came back to rework on it, I had to tone it down a lot. And yeah, that really goes to show how much we need to have information, but we need to not overdo it, right?
Okay, I see. Like for the company, what's the difference? Because maybe from one side is even better that you build such a, how to say it, your workflow about each process, but still, people tell you that it's a bit too much. How do you see and how do you think why it's such a difference? Why better to keep it more sharp, more simple?
So the process for EdgeOS as a whole, right? It maps the we start mapping out the business, but then after we map out the business, we also create playbooks. And playbooks, they are basically you take one complicated step, and that's the part where you get the complicated step and you make it as detailed as you need. And the playbooks, they have a place, they have a spot that you find them on the playbook library. And basically what I did, what I mapped the entire company, I overdid it in a sense that someone would follow the lines, would follow the maps, and they wouldn't, you would look at the monster that I built. It was a huge monster and they would get lost, right? So you could follow, like if you were like working in production, me and my project coordinator that I worked with, we would probably follow it with no issues. But someone who's not doing that on a daily, no way understand like how to follow. Having the right amount of information that people can understand it, but also having the right amount of information so people are able to process it. Because again, visual cluttering is also very big issue with whenever we overdo it. So that's the important things, and that's why we had to tone it down and we move a lot of the steps into playbooks, because then the playbooks, they would be on their spots, so there would be actual guides for whenever people are doing, for instance, doing a material order. Okay, if that happens, I follow with this. If this happens, I follow with that. So that's the place where you got to be detailed, and the more information that's relevant, the better.
Yeah, I agree. Not every person, I believe, has this. For example, I'm a person who remember always faces, location. I have very good visual memory, but not everyone needs so much of this information. I agree with you because the company is still, it's like human body. You need to connect a lot of different areas, a lot of different parts in the one. So better to make it a bit more simple to each person. So I want to talk to you about situation because it was two big storms a year, and then it got quiet season. Most companies, usually roofing, construction companies, during this quiet time start panicking because is no work for them, nothing to fix. But what did you do with that season? And what you decide to do instead of panicking in this situation?
That was the right moment for us to look back on the inside, right? So roofing companies, we are used to having seasonal work. So again, they are used to having a big storm, having a lot of work, but then there's sometimes they're not going to do anything. And although everyone is used to that, I think that also has a big impact, because what happens is a lot of the roofing companies, whenever it's the quiet season, they lose talent. They have to let people go, or in other cases, they just stop growing, because, okay, let me be safe and let's not hire too many people because we know that we not be able to won't be able to maintain them whenever it's quiet down. So when we quiet down, instead of, okay, let's let people go, we took this time to look inside the business and actually clean house. Because again, two big storm years, they are great. The money start flowing, the jobs come here like nonstop. But also it's when we have a little process that doesn't work and we don't have time to fix it. And eventually that starts to, it lead into cracks in the business, and eventually that will come crashing down. So we needed the quiet time to stop, rethink how we were doing things, and actually start to planning ahead. And, instead of just, okay, from job to job without thinking on what we're doing, we now have time to question, we have time to rethink, even though we've done a lot of the processes for 2 years in a row, like without that just works. Yeah, sure, it just works, but it could be much better. It could actually be a more lean process. It could be a much more simple thing that we could change, and that we only have time to think about it whenever these storms get. The storms did get. We didn't get a storm, so that again, that was the perfect time for us to rethink and start. EdgeOS came, started doing EdgeOS to actually rethink it.
Okay, but instead of waiting for owner to solve all these issues with leads and what the company should do, you decide to brought him some ideas about how you can find new way for leads. And
Mm.
could you please share, like, what did you tell him? What was your ideas? Because business owners watching us today, and I'm sure is such a big topic for them. So if you could share some of tips or ideas, what came to your mind, it would be very useful for people who watching us today. So let's give some useful tips.
So first, they weren't necessarily my ideas, right? The amazing thing at working at Edge is that we have Edge is a company that works with a lot of roofing companies, a lot of different companies from the entire United States. So we have created a knowledge well that runs very deep. So whenever we realized that the lead acquisition was a big constraint, I did talk with Cole. We just tapped into the well. We say, hey, what are the other companies that Edge work with, or even what is Edge doing that they get leads, right? We built a plan together, and I came up to the business owner with this new ideas. One thing that we really did start pushing for the business owner is that his business is more than 50 years old at this point. So it is a family run business, but he got into it around 10 years ago. And basically, there were many, many, many leads, many, many past customers that we worked with before, and these customers have aging roofs. A roofing system will not last like forever. So if we replaced a roof 50 years ago, there's a good chance we will need to replace it now again. So tapping into these customers that have aged out systems, or even just checking in with people that we done work with, we had a good experience. Say, hey, how's your roof? How's everything going? And they might have family that need roofs. They might have friends that they can point to us. So tapping into this list of past customers was one big thing that we started doing, and we're getting some results on it. So we're getting more homeowners referring to other people. We're getting basically uniting this long-lasting tradition of the company to modernize it and getting like those past leads to the present. I think you're muted.
But you also started to build referral program with agents and past customers. Why it's cheaper than buying new leads, and why it should work better for company? Because, it depends. I think it depends on area, on business, because sometimes really customers, they can block you for these referral programs and whatever, being annoying, but why in that case it's work very well.
So working with agents has been a pretty good symbiotic thing in the business. What I mean is that what is an agent, right? So basically, the agent is anyone that we work with. So people from HOA, from homeowners association, real estate agents, and even insurance agents. We put them in their program, and basically we bring them to our house, and we provide them with custom tools for them. And they are the ones who, whenever someone from the neighborhood that the HOA acts, they say, okay, I need to replace my roof. There's a repair that want to be I want to do. This agent can simply point this person to us, and there's always the benefits that we provide to the agents. Of course, whenever they point people to us, but it's very beneficial, right? Doing this is very beneficial because whenever we buy leads, a lot of the times, yeah, they can be good, but they won't be leads that most likely they might not know about us. So we have to introduce ourselves to them. So whenever we do it this way, the agent is a person that the new leads already trust. They already have contact with. So whenever they send it to us, there is already a connection. There is already, we're not starting from zero. We already have a connection with them that we can explore and even create a deeper connection, right? So it's kind of creating a deeper net instead of just getting a lead there, a lead here, a lead from anywhere, you know.
And when you write down every way how leads came inside of the company, what did you notice then that nobody noticed before? Because how I understand, when you start your operation job inside of company, finally everything was writing down. So what was your insights when you write all of that ways? What did you understand after?
First thing
Like,
that
mhm.
we realized is that I realized that we were relying too much into word of mouth. Best referrals, yeah, we do aim to provide the best experience to the customers. So we are a 5-star rated company in all the reviews, and that does bring leads in, but that is not the only thing that should bring leads in. So we needed more tools and more systems to get it started to actually improve this process instead of just the basic referral, the basic low level referral, as I'm going to say. And creating even programs. Again, we have the programs for the agents, but also we are starting also programs for homeowners in general. So for instance, in their company, if you refer someone, you know, you did a roof and you refer someone, okay, I know this person that they might have an issue with the roof, and we book an inspection, we find an issue that we can solve. This person gets rewarded as well. So the person who referred to us. So more incentives is just what they were lacking incentives to referrals. They were lacking systems to get leads, and that's what we started working on.
But I'm also curious, when you're mapping the things and when you decide what's gonna work, what is not, like on what your opinion is based on this moment, like how you understand what's gonna work, what is not gonna work. It's your gut or intuition or experience, or for example, wherever is that, how you understand what's gonna be better.
So coming again, this would be the second company working as an operations manager. And what I learned from this role is that data is very important, right? So I do sometimes we have to trust our instincts. Sometimes we might have good feelings that something will work and we should try. But at the end of the day, getting data and actually seeing the numbers, and even if there are no numbers, like if the company is not tracking numbers, we start tracking the numbers so we can make an informed decision. That to me is the best way for me to know if something will work, something has a higher chance of working, because we then have uh, indicators from the past, indicators from similar things that we do that we can use to make more informed decisions. Of course, you know, sometimes we just have an idea and say, okay, let's try this. And that can work, that might work splendidly, and that can fail like horribly. But that's also one of the risks that we do whenever we have we follow our good instincts. But whenever we surround ourselves with data, we get prepared in the sense, then it makes much more sense, and the decisions that we take are usually safer than if we don't.
So it's more analytic stuff.
Mhm.
Anyway, if you're operations manager, first of all, what you need is to make a good research and check all information about companies wherever it goes
Mhm.
for. Okay, I got it. Let's talk about if business owner decides to hire you next month, because you already have this experience working with company as operations manager, what your advice will be for business owner? What he need to hand you in week one?
I'd say hand me the keys of access to the vault of documents. Any information that you have, any documents, anything that you have, I'll need that to start creating a process. And also hand me the team. And what I say by that is that, well, this time around, I already was very knowledgeable with the team. We already had a rapport. We already had a lot of communications with. But when you start working as a business operation manager, you need to understand everyone. So you need to have access to the team. You need to sit down with everyone as much as you can at the start, the first 2 weeks, the first 3 weeks. You need to understand every single person's job, every single way that they do things. And it's got to be you and the employees, not the owner, because the owner probably they drew the process, right? So the owner said, okay, this is how we're going to do things. And a year later, 2 years later, the employees are doing the way that the owner drew, but with their own twist. And in order to have success with understanding the business, you need to understand what the twist is. It's actually happening on the floor instead of, what's on the map. So again, giving me the information that you have from your files and everything. So as much as information as you can, but also give me access to the team are the two most important things that can get the position flying, I think.
But how many time did you spend with business owner when you start working as operations manager? Like how many hours per week before you start to understand our processes, and still you need to ask some questions, especially if, for example, some of the processes like sales or leads, it's only in the person's head. So how many time you're speaking with owners? How often is that?
So whenever we made the change from production to the operations, we have started having a few more meetings. We usually would meet here and there before whenever we're doing operations. So like in a month, maybe one meeting or two. And switching to the business operation, we started meeting almost every 2 days, just on the first week, just so we get situated, right? Just so we set expectations, we plan out how we're gonna tackle because again, mapping the whole business is an endeavor, a big endeavor. So we started planning out how we would do that. But then it quickly came to 2 hours every week. And so that's enough for me to see what's the intake of the owner and also provide the feedback. So provide everything that I've been talking with the Edge team, with Cole, with Maria, with Eugenia. So I can provide the feedback. We can set new goals. We can prepare how we're going to move forward the next few weeks. And that's good enough for kicking another full week of work about it.
Yeah, it's not so much time, but still communication is the key, and it's for sure. But how does it cost to a company when, for example, owner is the only one person who has all sales processes inside of his head? Like, what's the impact of this for company when owner only one who is inside of this process?
That may not seem like too much at first, but once you understand and the ramifications of this, you start to understand there's a very huge impact in time, in money, in friction, in everything. So imagine every single time that a sales guy needs to do something, he has to ask the owner, and that can be 5 minutes, a quick 10-minute conversation. But that starts to amassing and starts to amount into a huge time. And then the owner realizes that he's wasting time, and the salespeople are wasting time as well, making questions that should have been written down, should have been like easily researchable, should have been a document that they can read and say, okay, I can do this. This is this is on a playbook. And that you take this time that you lost, and then you start realizing that, okay, now I'm answering the customers, I'm taking longer to answer to them. So I might lose some customers because I'm taking too long to answer them. And also in my mind, the biggest impact is that internally the company, people stop being owners, right? People stop owning their processes, and they feel like, I'm just doing this, instead of, okay, I own this, I can make choices, I can do that by myself instead of being able to think like this. They have to rely into the business owner. So they never own the process. They always like, okay, let me ask again and again. Hey, can I do this? Can I do that? Instead of making these smaller questions. So this will also increase a lot of internal friction, and a lot of people we end up not staying too long with the company because whenever we start working, we want to develop this ownership. We want to grow into our position, and if we have to always keep asking questions, we don't have this place where we can find the answers, or this set process where we can make logical questions without checking with someone, and you don't get this feeling of growing to your position basically.
Yeah, sure. And I'm curious because I'm sure people who watching us right now, business owners, the most important question for them and my favorite ones, how you as operations manager can make money for business, for owner, for company. Like, can you explain it pretty simple how your position is making money for company? Why company start to make more money, or it's like stop leaking some money from that?
It's a combination of everything, because when you start you work in the business, you start to looking inside the business, you not only start to be more efficient, right? So you stop losing some leads, you stop losing time, even making mistakes with ordering materials, for instance. So you get more efficient, you're able to get more jobs out of the door. But also, when you look inside, you also are cutting a lot of the costs that you have, a lot of unused processes that, okay, why are we paying this software if we're not really using all the features? Why are we making all of these merry-go-round of conversations if we can just introduce this little step in the process, and that will eventually save a lot of money. You will make the company leaner, and a lean company is a healthier company, and at the end of the day, it's what we need to get the business going, right? We need to stop wasting money on things that we don't need and focus on being effective on the things that bring us money.
Okay, if we talk about your experience inside of company where you worked before, could you just shortly explain what was point A in the beginning when you start, and now like a point B, what changed? So it's like already visible, it's already working, and the system and processes start going on.
So what changed from the beginning is visibility on the entire process. And I can even attest that as working from production, a lot of the times we were in the dark. So when I was working in production, there's a lot of things that I would have to wait to get the business the project going, and I didn't know why you're waiting for that, or why is it taking so long. This should be a simple thing, and mapping everything really did help me see, understand what everyone do, and even the other people in the company. So the front desk people, they had a lot of questions. They often would call me, hey, what about these customers, what about this customer? So now they understand much more about the process, and they can figure out and provide immediate responses to customers. So things like this show that the visibility has improved tremendously from when we started. So that makes everyone understand much more of the other people in the company, what we're doing. And that makes us more consistent, I think, to the homeowners, like in the customers look side of things, we are much more consistent to them. So no more someone gives an information and then we give them another information later. So we're all and know exactly what's gonna happen and when it's gonna happen.
Wow, it's really cool. I see. It's just for short period of time, not really a long time. How I understand you're inside of company,
Mhm.
but changes is really impressive. I believe it's just the beginning, and I'm sure the next move is going to be even more money to owner, because when you have time to build the strategy, not just answering all questions, is much better for your business and for future. Okay.
Absolutely.
So now we are going to my favorite part of the podcast. It's named Quick Fire. It's short questions. And why I like it? Because you need to answer with one word. It's first what came to your mind. So you don't need to think a lot. You don't need to build some construction to answer these questions. It's something super easy, just first things which you're in your mind. So when you're ready, let me know and we're gonna start.
All right, let's go.
Okay, how many processes have you mapped so far?
5 entire processes.
Okay. And first time when you made this big one, epic workflow?
Oh,
I'm curious how was there? If final one is a 5, in your first edition, how many processes did you put there?
so basically, we're now we doing I map much more than 5. It would be like 20 or something like it.
First number you would ask for in a new company.
What's the lead percentage, the lead conversion rate that you have?
Okay. The one process every roofing company gets wrong.
The offboarding, I think.
Okay.
So getting after everything's done, turning this customer into a loyal customer, I think that's the biggest.
The things you have taken off of the owner's plate that he will never take back again.
Aside from the entire process of production, I think that mapping out everything and actually having people be consistent about it, he'll never have to worry about it because I'm on top of everyone doing the playbooks and everyone owning their role.
It's very nice. It's very nice. First tool you open in the morning.
I open my CRM, so Job Nimbus, that I see how the boards are moving, how everything is situated, and that gives me a clear picture of the day and how everything's going to look like throughout the day.
Best thing about slow season, your opinion?
Best thing is we have time to think, we have time to rework, we have time to experiment. We're ready to try a couple things at the start of the year. And it's time for us to try and fail. It's time for us to actually do things that we wouldn't do because we were busy, right?
One thing you wish owners understood about this job.
We are not there to be the change, right? We're not there to force anything. We're not against the owner because sometimes it might look like, sometimes we may see a process that the owner built this so hard and we may say, hey, this is wrong. And we are together and we are building something together. And sometimes having this look from the outside and having this look from a different point of view is the key from taking your business from good to great to awesome to incredible.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, John. We finish with questions. You give very nice answer. It was nice and useful conversation. Thank you so much for that. So we're gonna finish our podcast. And I want you to say something, maybe your insights, maybe your wishes to people who watching us right now. Some recommendations, some last thoughts, whatever you have inside your soul, just say.
So not only is it because I work here, but I would definitely recommend you to the owners to actually go and look into Edge, right? I worked in the operations manager before as an inside of the company person, and this role changes everything because right here I have so much support, so much resources that I can tap into as if I was a business operation manager inside a company. So I was an employee directly to a company. I wouldn't have this supporting cast. I wouldn't have near as much resources that I have here. So definitely my recommendation for any business owner watching this and listening to this is go ahead and give us a call, give us a try because it's really a different process and it's something that I never really seen before in this scale and in this supporting and efficiency. So yeah, this is my. It might be also because I work here because I have my biases, but definitely do give us a try and you won't regret it.
Thank you so much, John. It was very nice to meet you. Thank you for this conversation today. And guys, if you want an operations manager like a John installing the system that keeps your business from falling through the crack, go to hvirtualassistants.com and book a call with us. It would be lovely to discuss with you our future collaborations. And for today, that's it. Thank you so much. Bye bye.